think that there is a trans community in the way that people talk about the trans community? Or do you feel that like it's more divided between gender identity, groups of people, male to female, female to male, or genderqueer groups?
It's divided.
And do you think that is there a difference between, or do you see are there divides between those who identify as queer or transgender and those who pass and identify as heterosexual female?
There is a very big difference. There are very distinct areas in the trans community. I mean, when I say trans community, I mean it just as far as being transsexual or transgender is concerned, but there are still big spaces in each of those places where they have their own thing going on. Like right now, I just recently started, maybe like 2 or 3 months ago, I started this Yahoo, and it's called Young Urban Trans Men. And the reason why I created the group was so that I could feel connected to people who are from urban areas and things like that. Being in Minnesota, the majority of the trannies that I know are from the Midwest. They grew up in rural areas. My roommate grew up in New Mexico. Like, clearly we just don't have anything in common. Music is... I've never heard so much heavy metal in my life. So for me, like, I wanted, I guess because of where I'm at too, like I wanted to have that connection at least somewhat to people who are like me. Not necessarily of color, but just growing up in urban communities or urban places. But yeah, there's a very big difference. And there's guys there, some guys are tranny fags that are in the group, meaning they don't date anything but FJMs or men. You know, some guys are queer, where they look like guys and they pass every day, but sometimes they like to get in drag. Then you got your guys, they just think of themselves as buying males. So there's definitely like distinctions in the trans community. People have their own groups and spaces. It's not like just one unit. It's definitely not like that at all. In Minnesota, there's this really big thing, like, I don't know. It's called, if I'm correct, it's called the MN Boys. Like, it's Minnesota based, but there's a bunch of guys there that they're trannies, but they don't do anything but trannies. And if you don't date trannies, then they don't talk to you, they don't hang out with you, they go to their own parties. Like, if you're not in this loop, you're really not in this loop. So it just depends. I mean, everybody's got their own thing going on. I guess
Do they date trans women?
No, they date other tranny boys. Which for me is, I don't know, it's just tough to adapt to. It was very bizarre. My first gay pride there, I could not believe it. Because in New York, I mean, you see a little bit of everything, but that you just don't see. I'm talking about big, burly, white-haired looking dudes. Like 5'10", 220, just huge. Dating each other. Like, love is love wherever you find it, but even with them, like, they have their own community and it's very pro them. And if you're not for that, if you don't represent that, they're not with it. So me personally, I don't know. I mean, I identify as being transgender. And I also identify as being queer. So whatever you are, whoever you are, I don't care. As long as we can have a good time together, we can talk or have a drink or whatever, I don't care. I'm so.
When you identify as a butch woman, did you identify also as queer then? Did you date, were you less specific about who you dated?
That's a big question. I've never put like a label on my sexuality. I always identified as being butch, but being lesbian, I don't know. That's a tough call. That's a really tough call because for me that would be the touching and things like that. I don't know. I just never actually identified as being lesbian. I didn't feel like there was a need to put a label on what I was. That's really good address. That's a good question.
Do did you exist in a lesbian community? I mean, did you go to like lesbian parties and hang out with other butches, with girlfriends, even if you didn't call yourself lesbian? Or did you not exist in that community at all?
To some certain extent, yes. I mean, I would frequent like Buddha bar, stuff like that.
You came up in New York?
Yes.
Oh.
You look very familiar too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you look
Okay.
awesome. No, I grew up in like, you know, going to Buddha bar and fat boys and all that. So yeah, but for me, like, I'm also hung out with the ball community, and they have their own set of things that they like to do. And there's other trannies there, and there's other butchers there that kind of have that same kind of identity. Like, I don't know, there's a bit of a difference. Like, the butchers that I know that don't identify as trans, that are a part of the Bombs community, you would think that they were trans. They stand up when they pee, they're men all day, every day, they behind their chest. Some of them have facial hair, some don't. Either way, like, I don't know, but the butchers that I know as far as in the lesbian community, they look like guys and they pass, but they don't necessarily go out of their way to. You know what I mean? Like, they're comfortable with going to the club and maybe taking their shirt off and feeling okay, you know, with their femininity showing, whereas some of the other butchers that I know, they just wouldn't do that. So I guess that's probably another reason too why I'm saying I'm not really sure about the whole lesbian thing, because I wasn't really so involved in that kind of community. So
I just want to ask a follow-up. What is your relationship like now with other butches, or I guess not only what is your relationship, but do you find that it's changed? Is there any resistance or tension there?
no, it's actually, since I got back, like I'm on vacation right now. I've been in New York now since Thursday. It's been awesome. My connections with people have been like really great. I don't feel like butchers are necessarily threatened or bothered or anything. Like, people have been really friendly and like, hey, how are you doing? Or I don't know. I don't feel like I'm completely different than them. I see them as, to be honest with you, I see them as male. If that's how you carry yourself, then that's just how I'm going to treat you anyway. I don't know. But no real difference. I don't feel like people are like pushing themselves away, or they're like, I don't really want to be seen with you, or I just think it's, you know, it's weird that you're like trans. So, you know. My best friend, actually, we've known each other since our first year of high school. So it's been a long time. And recently she just started, you know, asking me, well, she's butch. But recently she just started asking me questions about trans stuff, or how did you know, or things like that. I'm not necessarily sure if she's questioning her gender identity. I think maybe it might be that, and maybe it's potentially just out of curiosity. But I feel like people are more so prone to just want to know. Like, suddenly you're a conversational piece, pretty much. That's kind of, it's a little frustrating, to be honest with you. You know, at first it's like, oh, okay, like, I don't mind, like, I want to talk about stuff like that. But every opportunity people get, as soon as they find out, they're like, I'm like, you cannot be serious. Like, I'm just a normal person just like you. It's really not that big of a deal.
You talked a little bit about growing up. You said your mom was fairly accommodating in terms of before you started to form a gender association. What was that like, or what is that like? Has it changed when you grew into personal relationship with your family or anything?
No, it's been really great. Like, my grandmother, she just recently saw me, and she knows that I'm on testosterone and stuff. She was comfortable, she was okay. My grandfather wasn't so happy, but for the most part, everybody else has been pretty accommodating. The majority of my family is like, honestly speaking, you really don't look any different. I mean, so you have a couple of fuzzies here and there, but you don't look any different than when you left. You still look the same. You know, for them, I guess it would be a really big deal if I looked like you, and then I came back home and I looked like this, then they'd be like, okay, well, what is going on? But it's always been this way, you know? So, I don't know. But testosterone does make a difference. Some people are not okay. There's a couple of friends that I've run into, and they're like, you know, it's one thing to be butch, or a stone butch, or an R butch, but why would you go that far? Like, and it's weird, like, well, why are you taking it so personally? Like, my life doesn't affect you or what you do. I'm not asking you, like, why you have to be a lesbian. You know what I mean? Like, do you see, like, how ironic that is? it's I don't know, it's really strange, but for the most part, most of my family, they've been really great. I have a cousin too who's actually MTF, so it makes it a lot easier. It makes it a lot more easier. She's been that way since she was 14, so they're not necessarily so surprised.